If you're looking to be a web developer this year, then this is the only roadmap you need. This video starts off with a little bit about my journey and how I became a self-taught software developer. Then I go into the exact roadmap I use to get to where I am. I hope this video is valuable and helps you guys get started on your journey as well. So let's get started. So you want to be a software developer and you think it's an easy route to making major money and to get you out of that career you hate so much.
I hate it here.
Well, let me be the first to tell you that you could be actually onto something. Software development has been one of the hottest careers to get into for the past few years, with thousands and thousands of boot camps popping up left and right, pumping out new grads like hotcakes and absolutely flooding the market. But that's where it's a little complicated. How can you stand out and get that first job beating out all these other junior developers? Because people are definitely getting jobs, even in 2023. Take a look at some of the people from the Odin Project, from the Odin Project success stories. These are regular people like you and me getting jobs every day in the software development after learning for free. Distortion here became a software developer after 9 months with a background as an electrician, showing us that you can transition from a blue-collar worker into software development. This person used to be a straight-up criminal, honestly. No offense, but hey, they turned it all around in just 16 months and wasn't able to make it out of the bin, literally.
God bless America.
And look at the story here. They didn't even have a degree and managed to get a software development job in just 82 days. How crazy is that, honestly? And these are real life stories that were posted a few days ago. It's all on the Odin Project Discord server, so go ahead and check that out. I'll try to leave a link in the description so you guys can check it out. So that way you guys can get some starting motivation. It's definitely been a great resource for me whenever I felt a little down on my journey as a software developer. Aww. What I really want to show is that no matter what type of background you have or what your circumstances are, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, you guys. Now let me show you some of the things I did over the 6 months to get my first software developer job. I did this video before, but there's just so much value I feel like I can give you guys, so I wanted to just go over some things that I didn't cover before that I can cover today. So let's get started on the video. First and foremost, let's get started with a little bit of my background. I graduated as a mechanical engineering grad from University in Canada. Spent 5 years of my life daydreaming about designing the next Tesla or just overall helping design the next big thing. Basically what any engineering grad would dream about. Instead, I ended up in construction as a project coordinator. So not even engineering. I feel like project management is where your hopes and dreams just straight up go to die. I mean, maybe not that serious, but definitely a tough, grueling industry to be in. I spent 3 long years in it and honestly feels like I wasted a whole bunch of my time. So around May of 2022, I took a trip to San Francisco. I feel like you guys know where this is going. I took a trip there for one of my friend's wedding. And honestly, it was definitely one of those things that changed my life forever. Obviously, San Francisco is like one of the biggest tech hubs of the world, and I got a chance to explore a lot of it. 2 of my friends were actually in the tech industry, and we were just generally talking about careers and how unhappy I was in mine. One of the guys was actually an environmental engineer and was getting paid very well for a tech company working in New York as a web developer. Hearing that definitely got my attention. How can someone with a background completely unrelated to coding get a job as such a big company? I really didn't think it was possible, and honestly, I had that on my mind the whole week we were there. So when I got back home, I jumped on the computer and like most of you guys, violated the YouTube search engine with questions like how to be a developer with no degree, how much do software developers make, best boot camps to go into, and are there really playground slides in Google's headquarters? You know, all the pressing matters that I had to get answers to. And based on my long time research, I concluded that the best thing I can do was to get into web development. It seemed like the best thing to learn to hit the ground running, and with free resources like the Odin Project, it really made it easy for me. Now, what exactly did the Odin Project teach me? It focused primarily on making you job ready for full stack JavaScript developer roles. Starting with the basics like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and really learning how to manipulate the DOM and things like that. I remember when I first started the DOM topic, I was like, no way, this is even important. Anyways, Foundations course, they also push you to use Git and version control, which is industry standard to be familiar with. So I think that's probably one of the most unique things about the Odin Project that a lot of other places really don't have. Most other places throw up a built-in compiler in your browser and teach it that way. But no, this course teaches you start to finish to act like you're in the job. From setting up your Linux virtual machine to pushing your code to GitHub as frequently as possible while building those good habits early on. Before I go any further, let me show you one of the first projects I'd made under the Odin project so that you guys can get a good idea of the progression I made here. So one of the first HTML or CSS pages I made was a landing page for a business. Honestly, not bad actually. I think I learned about Flexbox for this and some styling from one. Not as bad as I remember honestly. The next thing I made was the most basic of basic rock, paper, scissors games that I introduced some JavaScript logic that I had to use. Man, I thought I was a whiz at this point. I remember sending it to a bunch of my friends to just try out, and honestly, no one was very impressed. But just getting them to use it made me really happy, felt like I was getting somewhere, you know? Okay, now moving on to the actual full JavaScript full stack developer course. They continue on to get more in-depth with HTML and CSS, bringing you up to a more intermediate level. And then more into what JavaScript is all about. This is where we started learning about classes and objects and just a general overview of object-oriented programming. One of the first projects I made in this section was this classic tic-tac-toe project. Pretty much what every software developer makes at some point in their learning. Many of you thought I believed I was a whiz before. Took it up many levels. Just look at it. Isn't it a beauty? Well, this was another banger I sent out to my friends to try out. Again, they weren't impressed, but I definitely sensed that they realized I was really taking this seriously now. Honestly, throughout your journey, it's great if you could keep someone you know in the loop just to keep you motivated, or else it'll get boring really quick and at least there will be someone to hold you accountable. But yeah, moving on through the course, we learned about form validation and APIs, and I thought that was really cool. I feel like people throw around the word API a lot, just like in the real world, without knowing what it really is. It's definitely really cool to learn about it. And then came React. Honestly, once we got here, I realized how absolutely sick React was, and I realized how important frameworks are and how powerful they can be. And honestly, I got through that section as quickly as I could so that I could build a full stack application, which led me to the backend section. And honestly, with no offense, hopefully taken, the Odin project needs to get their stuff together when it comes to the backend node section.
It's bad? It's very bad.
Definitely didn't have the quality that the front end section had, but I believe after a while, since it's open source and free, it'll improve naturally. But yeah, I ripped through this section as well and built my first full stack application. At the time I was starting my NBA fantasy league, I was inspired to make something that related to the NBA. So I used my skills in React to create the front end, and for the server side, I used Node.js, REST, and MongoDB for the database to store the data I wanted. As for pulling data about the league and statistics and things like that, I used Sports Radar's API. Basically, this was an app that showed you stats for all players in the league, so you would just search up the player, and I'll give you exactly what you wanted. I also want to have some user authentication with it, so I use Passport.js, which is an authentication middleware for Node.js. So people are able to sign in and use the app in a more personal way. Ultimately, I wasn't able to create the app I wanted because the API didn't allow me to make multiple calls continuously. So I wasn't able to save user data, stuff like that. So I considered this an unfinished project. But it was still a great project to show employer. Okay, now for the final phase of this master plan.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
All the while I was making this full stack app, I was actually applying to other jobs. And randomly I get an email from one of the companies I applied for. I was actually rattled because I was getting rejections left and right, and honestly it wasn't very surprising because the resume was lackluster at best, and it didn't even have this full stack application I had. It had like my weather app, my tic-tac-toe app, and one other one that I don't even remember. But I killed the interviews. There were 3 rounds. First was the general one with the HR. Next 2 was with the lead developer. I was able to show off the full stack application I built, and they were really impressed with what I had and ultimately gave me the offer that I have today. I was of course ecstatic about the whole thing. Like after just what felt like 6 long months of grinding the Odin project, I finally had an offer in my hands and it felt like a dream come true. And honestly, that's why I even started this whole channel. My success was something I thought I needed to share to the world and ultimately help you guys do the same. I know how frustrating it can be and how much you can hate the current situation you're in. But honestly, if you're watching this video now, it means you're already on the right track. You know that's gonna take action on your part. Now you know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Keep grinding, guys, and I hope this video inspires you to at least go after what you want, because God knows these type of videos helped me when I was learning. The first thing you need to learn is HTML. So what is HTML used for? Essentially, HTML is used to structure and organize content on the web. It allows us to create different types of content, such as headings, paragraphs, links, and lists, and to be able to really structure that in an appropriate way. To get started with HTML, all you really need is a text editor, which comes default with any computer. You'll start by creating a basic HTML structure, which starts with an opening and closing HTML tag, a head section, and a body section. In the body section, you can add various types of content using HTML elements. For example, to create a heading, you can use the H1 element. To create a paragraph, you use the P element. And to create a list, you can use the UL element for an unordered list and an OL element for an ordered list. HTML also has something called attributes, which allows you to add additional attributes to elements. For example, you can use an href to add links to your content, or src to add images to your content. Another really important part of HTML are IDs and classes. An ID is a unique identifier to really single out one element on your. A class, on the other hand, can be used to reference many elements on the page. Both IDs and classes can be used to apply styles to certain elements or to target elements with JavaScript. So now, what is CSS? CSS, or Cascading Style Sheet, is an essential part of web development. It's the language you use to style and lay out our web pages and making them look and feel just the way we want it to. Now you're probably thinking, style and layout, that sounds boring. But trust me, contrary to popular belief, CSS can be actually really fun and could be something that you could specialize in. With just a little bit of creativity and some grit, you can design and make professional looking websites in no time. With just these two tools, HTML and CSS, you can pretty much replicate any website that you've seen so far. The basic syntax of a CSS role looks like this. We have a selector which tells the browser which element we want to style, and a declaration block which contains one or more declarations. Each declaration consists of a property and a value. So for example, let's say we want to change the color of a paragraph on our web pages to red. We will write a CSS rule like this. This rule has a p selector which targets all the paragraph elements on the page, and a declaration block with the color property and a value of red. CSS can be applied to HTML in three ways: inline, internal, and external. Inline CSS is written directly in the HTML. Internal CSS is written in the head of the HTML document. And external CSS is written in a separate CSS document that's linked in the HTML document. So just for more examples, some of the more basic properties is color. As you saw in the earlier example, color is used to change the text color of an element. But color can just be used for more than just text, obviously. You can use it to style the background, borders, and even when you want to change the color when someone hovers over an element. Say, so for example, if you have a box on the screen, you can, if someone goes and moves over that box, you can style it so that the color just changes and different types of things happen. Now on to CSS selectors. CSS selectors are used to target a specific element on the web page. There are several different types of selectors: element, class, and IDs. Element selectors are used to select elements based on their tag name. So for example, you use the p selector to style all the paragraphs on the web page. Class selectors are used to target specific classes of elements. So if you put a class on like a series of elements, only those specific ones would be targeted. ID selectors are used to target a specific element with a certain ID. Now that we know how to target some of our elements, let's move on to layout. CSS provides several layout models that we can use to create responsive and flexible layouts. The most basic layout, and the one that's applied by default, block model. In this model, elements are displayed as blocks that stack vertically on the page. The inline model is similar to the block model, but elements are displayed in line and take up only as much space as they need to be. The flex model is the more advanced layout and my personal favorite. It allows us to create flexible layouts that can adjust to different screen sizes. By using these layout models, you can create a wide variety of layouts for your web designs. Now this is where we get to actual programming. So this will be your first programming language. Web development is all about learning JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language used to execute code on the web. It's a versatile language that can be used on a wide variety of tasks on the web. Anything from animations to form validation. The basic syntax of JavaScript is very simple. Like, it's one of those more easier ones for beginners to learn. JavaScript is also an object-oriented language, which means it's based off the concept of objects. Let me explain. Objects are a collection of properties and elements that can be used to represent like real world entities. You can create an object to represent, say for example, a car, with properties like make and model and methods such as start and stop. If that makes sense, I guess using that kind of example might make it more sense to you. Now another important thing that relates to JavaScript is document object model, otherwise known as the DOM. The DOM is a representation of the structure of a web page. It allows us to use JavaScript to access and manipulate the elements on a page. So we can use the DOM to add, manipulate, modify any elements on the page. For example, if you wanted to change like the paragraph size or the text size, or if you had like a box in your web page, then you can like kind of shrink it or open it up. Or if you wanted to add a new paragraph to the page or add more colors to the page and things like that very dynamically. DOM manipulation is a huge concept that you have to get down. Now that you've learned a little bit more about the DOM, now you can go more into handling events. So what are events? Events are actions that take place on the web page. Say for example, hovering over an element or clicking on an element. Those are two typical events that happen. So we can use those those kind of events and create JavaScript actions that are applied once those events occur. So for example, we can use an event listener to create a pop-up window that happens only when the user clicks on a specific button. Handling events are really important for you guys to get down, and it's really the only way for things to be interactive for the user. Now let's talk about somewhat of an advanced topic, asynchronous activities. Asynchronous programming is a technique that allows us to program concurrently instead of sequentially. This is useful when we have to perform a task that may take a long time to happen. Say for example, if we're making an HTTP request to a server, or if we have to read a large file. In JavaScript, we can use async, await, or promises to handle these type of events. Async or await is a syntax used to make it easier to work with asynchronous code. It allows us to use the await keyword to pause the execution of a function until the promise is resolved. Promises are objects that represent the result of an asynchronous function. Now we can move on to testing and debugging. These are essential and sometimes overlooked when you're trying to learn how to use JavaScript. It ensures that we're using our JavaScript code as intended. By using tools such as the browser's developer console and other debugging tools, we can find and fix errors and improve the reliability of our code. Now as a front-end developer, you have the option of using frameworks to help streamline your development process and to create bigger and more complex projects. There are several different types of front-end frameworks that you can use, each with its own unique features and benefits. One popular framework that I use and would personally recommend is React. React is a JavaScript library that is used to build user interfaces. It was developed by Facebook and has gained a ton of popularity in the recent years. One of the key benefits of React is its flexibility. React is designed to be used in a variety of contexts, from simple websites to more complex single-page applications. It's also easy to learn as a self-taught developer and has a large community behind it, so if you have any questions or concerns, you can always ask them on forums or Discord chats and someone will always be willing to help. But before you use a framework, you really have to get down JavaScript and manipulating the DOM down correctly, because React works by creating a virtual DOM. So if you don't know what these things are, it kind of becomes confusing when it's time to apply it. So it creates a representation of the DOM and only manipulates the elements that need to be changed. This can make your application faster and more efficient. Other popular frameworks that you can look into on your own are Angular and Vue.js. Each of these frameworks have its own unique features and benefits, but they all have one thing in common. They're all built to make it easier to make these complex front-end applications. Now that you know what you need to learn, what you have to do at every step of the process is create some sort of personal project that you can use to apply the concepts that you've learned in a more practical way. This way, by the end of your learning journey, you'll have quite a lot of projects to show employers about how well your skills are and what you can actually accomplish. But in order to show them that, you have to have a GitHub account. GitHub is a web-based platform that allows developers to store and manage their code repositories. At its core, it's a version control system that tracks any changes that are made on your code. This is a must-have tool in your toolbox that is used throughout the industry. Using GitHub and how to use version control is an essential skill that when you go into your first job, it'll be very helpful for you to be ahead of the game on that end. It's probably one of the first things that I should have mentioned, but I wanted you guys to get an idea of what you needed to learn so that you can actually upload to these repositories and kind of create your own coding project. So the number one programming language that is used all throughout the web is JavaScript. It's used heavily in front end, but it's also a great programming language to use on the back end side of web development. So JavaScript is very versatile in that sense, and it's a great one for beginner software developers to learn right off the bat. It's a high level language that's used to add interactivity to the web and create web application. JavaScript has simple syntax that's very easy for beginner developers to learn, and also has a large and active community that creates and maintains a wide range of frameworks and libraries. Node.js is a JavaScript runtime that allows you to run JavaScript on the server side. It's really what allows us to use JavaScript on the backend. Without it, we wouldn't be able to do it. It provides a rich set of APIs, which we'll discuss later, for working with file systems, making HTTP requests, and more. Node.js is especially useful for building scalable and high-performing web applications. Node.js also has a large community that you can learn from and supported by a wide range of hosting providers, so you won't have to worry about things like that. Node.js has a number of benefits for backend web development. It allows you to create web applications that can handle a large number of concurrent connections thanks to its non-blocking input and output model. This means that your application can handle multiple inputs from multiple users without slowing down or crashing at the same time. How cool is that? Instead of the process being blocked and waiting for input and output operations to occur, the operations operations are delegated to the system so that the process can execute the next piece of code. This is especially important for applications that would require a lot of traffic or real-time applications, such as chat applications or any video games and things like that. I'm sure you can come up with a lot of reasons why this is a very crucial feature. Node.js also has a rich set of APIs that allows you to work with file systems, make HTTP requests, and perform other common tasks. This makes it easier to build powerful, feature-rich applications without having to rely on other libraries or services. In addition to these benefits, Node.js has a large community, as I mentioned before, which means that there's a wide range of libraries and frameworks available for you to help you build and deploy your application. These libraries and frameworks provide additional functionalities that make it easier to make complex applications, and they're usually very well documented and supported, so you shouldn't have any issues getting any help or anything like that. Some popular libraries and frameworks for Node.js include Express.js, Socket.io, and Passport.js. But for now, my recommendation is to go with Express.js. Express is a popular framework for building web applications using Node.js. So basically it provides a set of tools and conventions that make it easier just to build these things. One of the main features of Express is routing. Routing refers to the process of determining how an application should respond to an HTTP request. With Express.js, you can define routes that map to specific functions in your application, and these routes will be executed when a request is made to the corresponding URL. This allows you to build applications that can handle a wide range of URLs and HTTP methods and respond to any of these requests in a customized and dynamic way. You can define routes using a variety of HTTP methods such as get, post, put, and delete, and many more. And you can specify the path of the URL using placeholder and regular expressions. Express.js also provides support for middleware, which are functions that can be executed before or after routing. Middleware can be used to perform a variety of tasks, such as paraphrasing request data, validating input, and setting response headers. You can actually define your very own middleware or use pre-built middleware from the Express.js community. This allows you to customize and extend the functionality of your application in a flexible and modular way. You can also use middleware to perform authentication and authentication check, and to even handle errors and exceptions. This allows you to build applications that are secure, reliable, and scalable, and that can handle a wide range of requests and responses. Finally, Express can also handle templating, which allows you to handle dynamic HTML pages based on data from your application. With templating, you can define templates that contain placeholders for data and then renders these templates with actual data when a request is made. This allows you to build applications that can generate customized and dynamic HTML pages without having to write raw HTML for each page. Express.js supports a wide variety of template engines such as EJS, Jade, and Handlebar, which all have different syntax and features. Now let's get into the topic of API. APIs, or application programming interfaces, are a set of rules and protocols that allow different software systems to communicate with each other. An API defines a set of functions or methods that have been called by another system, and it specifies the input and the output of the system. APIs are used for communicating between different systems and are a key part of modern software development. You can use JavaScript, Node.js, and Express together to communicate with API systems in a variety of ways. With these tools, you can build APIs that provide access to data, functionality, or services to other systems. You can also consume APIs provided by other systems and also use them to access data, functions, or services for your own application. For example, one of my full stack applications I was making was a full stack NBA fantasy app. And on the backend, what I did was call Sports Radar's API link so that I can populate players' shooting percentages, minutes played, averages, and pretty much anything that I wanted that the API provided, I could have gotten. To build an API, you need to define a set of routes and functions that handle the requests and responses of your API. You can use Express.js to define routes that map to specific functions in your application, and use Node.js to write the functions that handle the requests and response. You can also use a variety of libraries and frameworks to help you build and deploy your API, such as Swagger or Postman. To consume APIs, you need to make an HTTP request to the API using a library or framework. You can use the built-in HTTP module in Node.js to make HTTP requests, or use a library such as Axios, which is my favorite. You can then use the response data from the APIs in your own application, like the way I did, and just be as creative as you want with it. Whether you're building an API to get access to data or functionality, or consuming an API, Node.js, Express, and JavaScript will be very helpful tools for you to build any application you want. Now let's move on to databases. Databases are critical components of many web applications, since they allow you to retrieve and store important data. There's a variety of data technologies that are available with different strengths and weaknesses. Two popular and very different databases for web development are MongoDB and PostgreSQL. MongoDB is a NoSQL database that uses a document-oriented model to store data. It's designed to be scalable and flexible, and it's really good for storing large amounts of unstructured data. With MongoDB, you can store data with JSON-like document, and you can use the MongoDB query language to search and manipulate the data. The document-oriented model of MongoDB allows you to store data that has a complex and hierarchical structure. You can also use MongoDB's indexing and aggregation feature to search and manipulate your data in a powerful and efficient way. For my full stack application that I mentioned earlier, I actually use MongoDB to store encrypted user data, such as usernames, passwords, user profiles, and I was able to access this user authentication and thereby creating a very customized user experience. PostgreSQL is a SQL database that uses a structured and relational model to store data. It's designed to be powerful and feature rich, and it's well suited for storing structured data with complex relationships. With PostgreSQL, you can define tables and columns to store your data, and you can use SQL to search and manipulate your data. You can also use PostgreSQL's advanced data types and constraints to store and validate your data in powerful and precise ways. So you can use Node.js to write server-side code that connects to the database, and you can use Express.js to find routes and functions that handle the requests and the responses of your application. Also, libraries and frameworks that you use to make it a little bit easier for you to interact with these databases, such as Mongoose for MongoDB and SQLize for PostgreSQL. These tools can help you build applications that are both scalable and maintainable. Now you're probably wondering, okay, I've got all these tools, but how am I actually supposed to show anyone any of these things I've built? So now we move on to deployment. Deployment refers to the process of taking your web application from development and testing and making it available to the public. Deployment involves a number of tasks, such as building and packaging your code, configuring your server, and setting up your hosting environment. There are many hosting platforms that deploy your web application, each with its own features and benefit. One popular hosting application for all the technology I've been talking about, like JavaScript, Node.js, and Express.js, is Heroku. With Heroku, you can deploy your application with a simple Git push, and you can scale your application up or down as needed. Heroku also provides a variety of add-ons and services that can help you extend and manage your application, such as databases, monitoring, and logging. So I've tried to pack all the information that I can for you guys in this one video, but I'll be releasing more and more videos going into more details and just trying to really help you guys get you that first software developer job that you want. I know how awkward and kind of difficult it can be as a first-time self-taught software developer, and just kind of having someone there to guide you would have been really helpful for me when I first started. So I'm just trying to give it back to the community. If you're having any doubts or worries that you're not able to do it, I'm here to tell you right now, as proof, as someone who was able to do it from pretty much learning zero programming, and I'm here to tell you that you absolutely can do it. So long as you give yourself the time and just put in that consistent effort every single day. Doesn't have to be a lot of effort. Doesn't have to be like 8 hours every day. Just a couple hours every day, slowly getting a little bit better, getting that like 1% better, just so that you can reach that one goal of getting that first software developer job. And I promise you, you will benefit both financially and mentally. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. And if you liked the video and thought it was really helpful for you, please hit that like button, and I'll release a lot more videos. So stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.